live. We have another wonderful guest joining us today, and we're going to go, hopefully, very deep into singing, vocal technique, the tenor voice, and possibly, if we have enough time, performance, and maybe even some, the realities of building a career in music and all that stuff. But we'll see if we have time for that. Remember, guys, that Tenor Talk is interactive, which means for those of you who are CTS members, please write to us your questions, your thoughts, anything you want to ask our great guest, Harry Kersley, which will give you a proper introduction, Harry, and any sort of thoughts, any ideas, anything. This is interactive. This is the whole point. You have access to us. So if you're a member, please chat. If you're not a CTS member and would like to ask us questions, remember that you can join the conversation by becoming one, and you'll be able to take part of this live chat as well as future live streams. So as mentioned, today's guest is British tenor Harry Kersley. Harry, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Taking your time, a generous amount of time. You have a performance today. Actually, we both do. So
yeah,
thank you for just taking the day, even though it's a performance day, to just be here and share a little bit of your wisdom. You and I, we've never met in person. Actually, technically, this is the first time we're talking, but we have chatted a couple of times through Instagram.
I've been following you for some time, so it's cool to actually meet you virtually.
Yes. Yes. And when I announced that you were going to be our next guest, I think a lot of people already knew who you were. They were like, "Yay, Harry is coming!" So you've taken quite strongly towards teaching or sharing your vocal technique, thoughts, and advices in social media, to the point that if they click your Instagram username, all it is a library of just like, this is your issue, this is how to solve it, this is vocal technique tips, which is great. So people already know who you are. However, for those of you who might not be familiar with Harry, I do have a little bio to kind of introduce you to them. Harry holds an undergraduate and postgraduate degree in singing. He did study in Royal College of Music and the Trinity Lab. Am I saying that? Trinity Laban?
Laban.
Okay. Yeah. Conservatoire of Music and Dance. He has sung operatic roles on the traditional stages like Tamino in The Magic Flute, the Duke of Mantua in Rigoletto, a wonderful role, and Alfredo in La Traviata, something that I'm very familiar with at the moment. Of course. Now, one thing that's also a little bit different is that you have also been able to take your skills and your craft outside the traditional operatic stage. You've been able to sing, for example, kind of a hybrid musical theater as well, and
crossover.
You teach that, which is, you're one of the first guests who also are an expert in not just classical but both hybrid styles. You've sung in front of the Nottingham's Motor Point Arena in front of an audience of 10,000 people, which is
quite surreal.
Yeah, quite the feat. Big outdoor stage. You have sung for members of the British royal family, and you have been a judge on BBC One Talent Show. You've been performing on BBC Radio 4, and currently you run an international voice studio, which I think we're all aware of, everyone who knows you, where you teach all sorts of singers, Broadway performers, and established artists. And on top of that, you're an entrepreneur. You also are the founder of Miraculum Entertainment, which is an agency, correct? Providing performers, private and corporate events. So you have been around, you have the experience, you obviously know what you're talking about. So Harry, welcome to Tenor Talk.
Hello.
I kind of want to get into it. I was thinking of how should we tackle this, and I think that the people here just kind of want to get into the vocal technique stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're like you're one of these gurus, and so.
Oh God, don't use that word.
So the question that I always like to start with, I think I've kind of started with every guest that I've had here. It's one that I learned from as well. Is what is your methodology? In other words, if you could summarize your entire vocal journey and what you do now, today,
Yeah.
not what you did
Yeah.
before, but today, in simple terms, so that
Wow.
we don't overcomplicate it,
Yeah.
how would you summarize your vocal technique, your thoughts on it, your methodology on the voice?
Oh, that's such a hard one question. Because obviously, with students, you kind of need different methodologies, right? Because different ways to skin a cat with certain singers. Well, for me, I'm all about the like a lot of the stuff that you say, the open throat, understanding that, because you know you have all these old school coaches that say it's all in the larynx, when it's like, no, it's understanding the voice is a cocktail of coordination of different things happening together. You know, the larynx is just one part of the overall cocktail. Yeah, and just really focusing on all the fundamentals: support, keeping the open throat, understanding that vibrato is a byproduct of everything working together, and then of course the feeling of slimming around the passaggio, so that you can then open up the top, and not using brute force, which is a method that I used to use for a long period of time that didn't serve me well, as I'm sure many tenors have been there. So yeah, I sort of just try and stick to the basics and then find different ways that help my students, you know. I like analogies, but I also like understanding why we're using the analogy as well, if that makes sense.
Great, fantastic. No, I love that. Now, as far as, because you mentioned students and teaching students, how about yourself when you're on stage and you're about to open, you know, you have an audience, you're about to sing, what goes through your mind? Is it like a 1, 2, 3 type of steps? Is it more instinctual? Is it, I have a process if I do this? Do you think at all? Some people like to think, some people just don't.
I see. One of my, probably, I'd say one of the things that kind of like, I'd say I think too much. Maybe I think you probably at the point where you get on stage, you need to stop. Like technique wise, you need to shut that door in your head to really focus on what you're actually singing about, and what you're trying to portray. But then again, as tenors in particular, we've got that high B, high C that we're like, we need to maneuver what's going on so that we can do it. So there has to be a bit of that, but you know, you need to get to a point that you're, first of all, not singing stuff that's too much, because then that is scary, and and also the audience are scared with you because they can see in your face you're like not quite sure, and just being able to go into a performance and know what you're doing, because competence equals confidence, right? You know. So ideally nothing but what you're about to sing about, if that makes sense.
So in other words, practice it or train it in the practice room so that you don't need to think about it during the performance. It needs to be almost ingrained muscle memory. Is how much training it is. Great. So now, going into the vocal studio, you teach a lot of people from different styles. When you hear a singer for the first time, it's the first student, and by the way, again, guys, this is kind of like Harry's masterclass. Even though it's online and we're talking, two of us, ask your questions as he's there to answer. When you hear a singer for the first time, what are you listening for before anything else?
It's a tough question. First of all, you can usually tell straight away if a singer's unsupported, like straight from the bat. And you know, I don't know what you think, but I think support is always as a result of what's happening at the point of phonation. But with students as well, I like to show them what they should feel, but understand it's because of what's happening here, right? But you can usually tell straight away when someone has not adducted their chords well enough, like efficiently enough, and it's usually heard in the vibrato. You can usually hear that straight away, and you can just tell by their posture. They can't stay grounded. They're usually reaching as they ascend. Like usually when we just start with a 5-note scale, going up the range, just seeing where they're at basically, and you can usually troubleshoot and diagnose a lot of what's happening straight away. Usually support is a big one, and then just hearing what they do around the passaggio. Some will overturn and like make it all pharyngeal rather than let the coordination happen. Some will do the opposite and just go just go full on, you know, wider as the higher they go. which has worked for some singers, but yeah, you can. It's less focused, I suppose. You know, that's usually what I hear.
That's great. No, that's literally fantastic. And you mentioned support. I can't tell you also how many times I've had a singer or student come and it's more, you know, it's a shouty type of sound, but we usually blame the support. It's like I'm screaming, I'm tensing, or I can't reach a high note. Something to do with my support. Whereas sometimes one of the great proverbs of Maestro Jack Livigny, which I admire and respect very much, he mentioned before. He says, he says you need to. A lot of people think that it's support to change the sound. Is if you fix the quality of the sound,
yeah, totally,
then your body will be able to support. But if your sound is not supportable or has nothing to do with the ability of the body to support the sound, then fixing the support won't work. You have to fix the sound, then the support will come in. So speaking of support, which is exactly where I was going to head to, is what does support actually mean to you? This frequently used and misunderstood word, I believe, in opera. What does support mean to you?
I mean, I've been there, like, as a singer, like, is it tucking in? Is it pushing out? Is it going to the bathroom? Is it trying to hold in a pee? Is it trying to hold in a belt that's too tight? You know, I've done it all when it comes to troubleshooting. What is this golden chalice that we're trying to figure out? And just understanding that the different, if you play around with the point of phonation, you have a different reaction to the body, right? So if you use a lot of like too much adduction, like, yeah, you'll have a big engagement of the body, but you could argue then that becomes like a grunty sort of feeling. And then if you haven't got enough, like a breathy sound, there's nothing. But then, which you obviously talk about as well, that so controlled side, that feeling, then the body's engaged, it's not tense, it's not floppy, and then you naturally have that sort of pushing out feeling and the slight tucking in as well. It's like the solar plexus is taut. I don't like tight, not firm, but taut, like and then the lower abs will do their own thing. But sometimes with students, I have to like show them that feeling from what's happening here for them to get it, if that makes sense. Because you can't really change what's going on here too much through like try this, try that. You know, you have to just try and show them that feeling for their body to go, oh, that's it, and it's happening because of this. You know, not the other way around.
I think we share a common colleague and a friend. I asked this question also, a similar question to our dear friend Freddie the Tommaso, which I think you are. Yeah, you guys have.
Yeah. He's taught me a lot of.
Okay, wonderful.
He fixed my top. Like he F sharp and above. I mean, he knows what he's doing. So
great. I asked him this. So Freddie, what is support to you? He's just like it's I know, but of course he went down and he was saying how like when you sneeze, when you cough,
yes,
the body
the cough, yeah.
You sneeze, you cough, you aspirate. Anytime we are releasing a plosive stream of air, the body reacts, not because you're doing it. You're not flexing your abs when you sneeze. Right? You don't go. Now I'm ready. No. The body reacts to that plosive release, and when we mimic or imitate in a way that release as through the other concepts of that make up the singing process, we get a natural support. The body supports the sound if the quality of the sound is correct. Now, here's the problem. Because singers can sometimes be told to support more, they end up just simply pushing harder, right? So do you think that sometimes using too much air rather than too little, what actually happens to the voice when we're throwing too much air to the instrument? You know, that idea of, I need to support more, I'm gonna thrust.
Yeah. It's I think teachers need to be, I mean, maybe it's because they need to be more nuanced in what they're trying to say rather than just support more. Like
what does that mean, right?
What does that mean? Exactly. Yeah. I did undergrad, postgrad, and I still wasn't taught what did this mean, you know? And it's usually like, okay, we need to find more adduction in your phonation. We need to get more, maybe this feeling of the yawn at the back, and then allowing that feeling of like energy underneath the chords to compound that feeling, rather than like, right, I'm ready to go now. Like, you know, or it's with support, it's usually more like, are they inhaling right? Are they expanding? Are they maintaining the expansion? And then is the point of phonation efficient? That's usually a cocktail. It's again, singing is a cocktail of different things, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. I love it because I am a believer of understanding the independent components that make up singing, but eventually one needs to put them together and understand the process is almost simultaneous when you are actually doing it, and therefore supporting more without understanding the other concepts just doesn't mean anything, right? Especially if a singer hasn't quite understood the idea of keeping the chords elastic, keeping them firm, the idea of opening the throat, the idea of what is the laryngeal tone. All these things, we must be masters of all these internal components and put them together. Now, for tenors, 99% of the people that come to me are like, I want to fix my high notes, right? It's just what everybody wants.
It's what gets the most engagement online as well. Have you noticed?
I just want my high notes. Right.
Yeah. My reach has gone down. Right. Post a video about high notes and then boom, it goes back up again. It's crazy.
These pesky high notes, right? Now, if a tenor thinks, I actually like this question because I think this was also a mistake I made, and I honestly, I'd probably still make it in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say it also depends on the singer, right? You know, if you're a singer with big chords and like, you know, if you take in a deep breath, you're going to have more of that subglottal pressure. If you do versus you see. So if you have like too much subglottal pressure, especially for high notes, is not ideal, because you get as the chord stretches, you get more of that pressure anyway from the stretch, because they're stretching and tightening as a result. So I don't really, to be honest, I just make sure that the inhale's right, and I just I don't really overthink breathing too much or too little. I just breathe and just maintain the yawn. If you breathe, and extremes usually don't help. If you go too far, you know.
100%. I lost you for a bit. I hope the life.
Yeah, I lost you a second.
Just for a bit. Yes, I totally agree. I like to think of, like, we are a pressurized tank.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we are. Think about it this way, guys. If you take a massive, you tank up with air before a high note, all that air wants to escape. And it's very difficult to, especially on a high note, we're not talking about a low note, but on a high note where the chords need to be thin, stretched, and elastic, for them to stay together, if you have all that, what's mostly going to happen is those chords are going to blow apart. And one of the things that I actually, and this I don't know if you tried this, Harry, I kind of liked it, but I took a tip from one of our colleagues, and I tried singing passages like that one, like that take you up to high B flats.
Yeah.
First, getting rid of all my air, so complete go.
Okay.
And then starting from there, not completely zero, but in a way just getting rid of most of the air, and then trying lost my hair, and feeling how having sometimes or not the feeling of tanking up can actually make the high note a little bit more easeful, since there's not so much air, so much subglottic pressure underneath the chords. And then obviously working from there. I don't want you guys to think, let me get rid of all of my air before I sing.
Exactly. But, before a long phrase or something. Yeah.
Respect it. But you don't need a tank full of air just for a high note. Remember that if you're doing things correctly with proper reduction, proper support, you can actually sing for a very long time without needing air, which is why these bel canto tradition, great old school singers sounded the way they did. They're kind of like that idea of the balloon, inflate the balloon and just stretch the little neck.
Yeah.
And that's literally what we're doing in a relaxed way. Okay, so we talked a little bit about support. I think the other major thing that comes up a lot is passaggio, right? We can't have a tenor conversation without getting into the passaggio. What do you believe is actually happening, or how do you teach how to navigate through the passaggio correctly?
Well, you've got to slim. I mean, the old, the hourglass idea. You have to slim it. You have to. Yeah. There are loads of different schools of thought. Like a guy that big online talks about using like an oo place, an oo valve. I get that, because that's like if you try and then put like an air vowel, air plus oo will change it to more like air. You see? So it's all the same. It's all the same result, right? You need to, but understand that. I love singing on an oo, and I love singing through a straw as well, especially for around the passaggio, to feel that feeling of like letting them let the chords lengthen and stretch. Ooh, that feeling, rather than trying to carry the weight up, or bring your chest up, is what people say. You mean stretch a chord that's too thick, right?
Yeah.
And so slimming vowel modifications, but also the vowel modification isn't just enough. That helps with the tilt, absolutely, but then getting used to that sort of cry, baby sigh, baby cry, what people talk about, that connected piano, or pianissimo sensation, and not coming off that. And one thing that really worked for me, and it really works for my students, is obviously the straw, but lip trills, doing mezzi di voces on lip trills. So going completely pianissimo to 40, like full voice, and then it's for a lot of my students, it's a real game changer when they realize, hang on, I've just sang piano to forte on an F sharp G, and I didn't have to squeeze anything. I didn't have to interfere at all. The mechanism just did its thing for me. And then when it comes to singing it in open, you then get that sensation, and then add the vowel modifications as you ascend. But I mean, like I've seen you've done a video about straws. They're so helpful for getting that feeling of feeling, not or blow the air at it. It really helps.
It's funny you mentioned that. My next video is going to be again about talking about SOVT exercises, semi-included vocal tract exercises, because it goes along with the recent conversation that I've been having through my videos about vocal cord adduction and what they really do. What's the point of them?
Yeah.
And yes, it's a tool, but you need to understand what the tool is supposed to help you with.
Exactly.
The question that is very important is, how do I maintain elasticity while adducting the cords and maintaining a laryngeal tilt? And we'll talk about that. But I think that's most people's question. How do I maintain elasticity? In other words, when I sing airy or falsetto-y, I feel freedom. But as soon as
you're losing. You haven't got the bite yet. Yeah.
So the question is, well, how do I feel that? How do I feel it? Well, that's what
one thing. The straw, absolutely. One thing I found really helps my students like a lot, and also my some of my opera singers who were singing in Germany. We were practicing this sotto voce going up the range, so like that sort of place. But and then just like dosing in the amount of closure, like slowly. So we try fully falsetto, not falsetto, but still connected, not but and then just exactly. But then not saying go full voice now, saying okay, add 5%, add 5%, add 5%, and then play around with the dose until you find that point where you're resonating. It's full, but you're not pushing. Which is usually it's been like, and it actually works for all singers, like my pop singers as well, ones who are trying to ascend above the passaggio, like belting all that stuff. It's still the same approach. We get them doing this, and then understanding if you want a belt, it's going to be slightly more like thorough written or engagement. But it's all about playing around with the doses of what's happening. You know,
gradual training. I compare it a lot to physical training for the body as well. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean like I want you to sing like you're lifting weights. No, that's not what I mean. But I mean like you wouldn't go to the gym first time and go for the 100 pounds. Just you're gonna hurt yourself and you can't do things correctly. That's not training. You gradually you start with something you're comfortable with, like this sort of head voice with light adduction or kind of falsetto with that sort of filo di voce, that nice and gradually, like Harry says, 5%, 5, then add a little bit more. Comfort. Vocal technique equals comfort. Don't get lost in all the terminology, the this, the that, the comfortable. You need to sing comfortable up and down, and the voice needs to feel unified. Now, we can't talk about the passaggio without also kind of sharing to the audience the laryngeal tilt.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's one of the most key aspects of singing, really singing any style. Obviously, classical genre takes it to a more extreme because we are our own amplification. We don't have a microphone. But the idea of elongating the vocal tract, getting into the laryngeal tilt. Could you please, in a way, explain that in a way, how you would teach it or how that services the voice going up and down?
It's interesting because there are some singers that will try and achieve the tilt by depressing the tongue. So I see that a lot. Like people want to sound bigger, and this is from someone who used to do it, so I can talk from experience here. But like because look, the larynx will drop down if I do this with my tongue, right?
Right.
Oh, you know, understanding that if you get the yawn, and you see the body, when you get the yawn, the body does. There we are. And then I like practicing a lot of speech in that tilted place. I mean, in England at music college, you'll get baritones that want to sound more dramatic than they are. They'll talk. They'll go around the canteen. Hello, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm a baritone. Yeah. So I'm singing Verdi's Requiem. This, you know, like this voice. But for tenors, we should really play around with that. Yeah, hello. But then also then pinch the nose, get that. Pinch the nose and then talk in that place there. Hi, yeah. That place, yeah, and get comfortable with that connected voice. Oh, and then practice the siren, but connected, always connected. Oh, and then but practice it on an ooh, that feeling of ooh, because if you just go without any training on how to stay slim in your singing, you go So I like to do a lot of ooh work with tenors that can't. To get that feeling of slimness, and then that feeling, you know. You know, you have to. It depends on the student, but usually vowels, getting them to sing a slightly different vowel to that they're used to usually helps.
I agree with all that stuff. I tell people, if you're not doing these exercises or any of the concepts that most people talk about on the laryngeal tilt, then you're not doing them right. I think for me, it is the key to anything, because most people, again, sing how they speak naturally.
Yeah.
And we regurgitate this Italian proverb, cantare come parlare.
Yeah.
Everyone, without understanding what that means, really. And so, like, cantare, just sing how you speak. Well, this is how I speak. If I sing like
same.
this,
and I'm English. We talk like this all the time. High larynx, glottals, you know, a bottle of water,
speaks,
you know.
Everyone speaks in a neutral or in a high larynx position. Getting to this place, we only really do it when we are thinking of that yawn position, but we don't ever do it. But you, as a singer, and for everyone watching, please understand that the laryngeal tilt is the key. It elongates the vocal tract. Harry mentioned a bunch of times he loves to sing with the ooh vowel. The ooh, look what it is. It's not
No, it's not.
This is why all the great
It's
methods revolve around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Revolve around that. Why? Because it gets the laryngeal, which is what it is, by the way, guys. A laryngeal tilt is a tilt of the larynx, brings forth the vocal cords, stretches them, and now you're in a place where there's more head-voice integration because the vocal cords have stretched and thinned, so it changes the quality. Now, in this position, while relaxing everything, now you speak, like Harry says, don't make it more artificial. No,
yeah, exactly.
You've already made it. You have your scudo, your darkness. Now speak. Now cantare come parlare in that position. Very important. I feel very strongly about this.
But that, you know, some Italians do speak in that tilted place, so that's probably why we've misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
Like I said to you before, like Welsh people, they talk in this place like that. Hello, Paul, how's it going? You know, like in the UK, we always joke because Welsh people are just generally better at naturally singing than people from England. And I 100% think it's because they talk in this place like that. Yeah. Whilst here in London, we're like, hi there, how you, hi, you know, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, sing like you speak, if you speak well for singing.
Yeah. Cantare come parlare if you parlare like a Sicilian Italian.
If you parlare well. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Like, and in the end, you know, this comes from, you know, opera came as an extension of theater.
Yeah.
And again, back then, microphones, you know, Greek theater, all that stuff that was invented. So it was a reciting voice. If you go to Sicily, especially Catania, where I had the pleasure of taking some lessons with the great legend Salvatore Fisichella, if you hear him talk, if you hear any Sicilian talk, a private conversation, private, from 4 blocks away, you still hear it, even though it's private, right? Because they just have that recitefulness, right?
Freddie would always say to me, it's like you're shouting across a motorway to someone, like, hey, like that. Yeah. It would always be that sort of calling sort of idea. And yeah, Freddie, because for me, I was singing like a tenorino before I met him, and he just got me to go, like just get this like feeling of, right. And that's to really just get the tilt. Like when people go get more chest, it's like usually you're getting more tilt when you know and more
as long as it's not pushed, for sure.
Yeah, as long as it's not like you know, but it's this more like chesty, but like what we're doing, we're tilting, we're getting more reduction of the vocal folds, you know. But that could get misinterpreted, you know.
Right. It could turn easily into a, like you mentioned, a compression, where you're now pushing it with like the tongue, or a shout. And it's about staying in that position with that elastic, delicate, I like to say delicate quality of sound. It's a delicate quality of sound in a nice, open, acoustical space, in a long vocal track. And then speak naturally.
It has to be like, not shouting, but calling, like, But that could get misinterpreted if you didn't have a good foundation of what you were like doing, which is where I think the whole internet of vocal tips, some of them can be just so they could be misconstrued, right? You know,
right? Yeah.
It's the Wild West out there.
yeah. It's funny because if you just go back like 20 years ago now at this point, you would have to go to the library to try to find some good information about the voice. You know what I mean? Now there's an overflow of information everywhere. Like you could find this in your phone through AI and all that stuff. So now we're dealing with, before it was hard to get information. Now there's just so much information that it becomes overwhelming to understand what works and what doesn't. Now, stepping away a little bit from the passaggio, one thing singers often do when approaching a difficult quote-unquote high note is to try to help it. We help the high note somehow. They push a little more, or they breathe a little more, they open a little more. What do you think singers are normally doing to help the high note, but actually makes it more difficult?
Thinking that the high note needs to be bigger than the rest of their singing. Does that make sense? So like, isn't it funny when you teach a student and you take them like to maybe take them to a high C, right?
Yeah.
And they were struggling with maybe the A when it was D major, the A, like they were thinking that was the limit, the pinnacle of their phrase, right? But then you take them even higher, and then they have to sing that A again, but it's a springboard to the high C, right?
Right.
Then that A is fine. That A is usually a lot better. And I'm sure we've all had the same experience as singers with our teachers in the past as well. And usually when the mental block that this is coming, the limit is coming here, they usually want to modify the end when it's like, if anything, you need to modify the one before more. And usually people will throw weight, throw too much throw too much air, raise the larynx because they're thinking, you know, rather than understanding that, keep this sustained feeling of like this, and knowing that you don't need to go too much more than that piano place. Especially at the top, you don't need much more. You know, you just need like just that little feeling of bite, and that's it. You know, but people want to, you know, just throw the kitchen sink at it. You know, and usually, like I said, with those scales, like when that A that we said we used to think was that, it's because they're not thinking, and because they're ascending through a phrase. They're just ascending, stretching, tilting. They're doing everything already and not thinking about it by that point. And then they'll usually mess up the high C or whatever it is.
No, I think you touched on a point that's very important, which is the mind. I think too. Sometimes mentally, we block ourselves, and it affects the technique. You mentioned that you take singers to an A, and when we have a phrase in which the A seems to be the climax, our mind goes, bah, bah. Here's the A, and we're going to hear, and it grabs, it clenches, it feels like this is the, we also try to make things sound exciting, where it should be the opposite. If it's like, do, ska, say from Replies, thinking that it's, do, here's the climactic note. It's not. If anything, start telling your mind the opposite. Relinquish that idea that I am headed towards a destination. You're not headed towards anything. You're constantly, if anything, submitting, as you said. You're submitting. You're relinquishing that feeling of grab, and you're not headed anywhere. You're just suspending, continuing to pull. You could go higher.
I used to be. I used to be a massive. I used to be a massive holder, like hold. I mean, I did a post recently about which I used to have some like vibrato problems where it was because it's that feeling of like, okay, I'm on it now, I need to do something, it's like, and one thing that really helped me was just an internal process is I imagined I'd shot the arrow, right? And then I was just following the arrow, the trajectory of the arrow, like with my eyes. Just to get my brain, like just to hijack the brain from like thinking I'm on a high note, and it just helped my high notes massively. Just and just imagine that once it's gone, you're then just following it. You're not pushing, but you're just following it, and then that keeps the body engaged. But you're not like trying to like hold on to it. That really and it really helps with like for me, I had to fix my vibrato from getting into this more straight tone feeling, not by like but I had to get that more of that adduction of the chords, and then relax the larynx, release with that feeling of straight tone in my ear. And then what happened, funnily enough, when I just focused on the pitch that I was singing, not about anything else, and released, that there was like, I asked anyone, they were like, that's not straight tone. And it's so common with students that I see. Like a lot of opera singers could do with thinking a bit more of that bowing feeling. And then it's funny that my musical theatre Broadway singers that especially struggle with then going from a belt place to they could do with understanding, like getting that more spin-like sensation in their singing, and then adding the straight tone back. It's really interesting how you learn from singers who sing different styles as well. But absolutely, it's always moving. I think you've said that as well yourself. You know, it's always, but never like forward, push forward, or you know, you see people who say plant it forwards. Yeah, that might help certain singers, but it might be detrimental to certain singers. You know.
Yeah, I recently love the term breathing in the note. So not just breathing in before you sing. As you're about to sing, instead of breathe it in. Breathe it in the note so that you continue to feel that you suspend instead of caging. You're suspending that space. And then for me, I've combined it with this idea of you don't hold a note, you don't hit the high. I hate that. Everyone uses it. Hit the high note.
Hit a note. Hit a high note.
You don't hit it. You don't hit anything.
You don't.
That idea of pulsating as you are maintaining that dome, so that it's a continuous vibration. So you're not singing one tone, you're singing many.
Yeah.
So that the idea is
that's the pulsating stuff is great. I love that. Like and like it helps a lot of my students that are too firm. So it's like I've got a tenor who's great, but there's like too much stiffness in the especially when he knows it. He carries like the chest, like the chest, but it's this like feeling, you know. And then I got him going. You see that feeling, and you see my body when I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
And what's happening, guys? It's happening as a result of what I'm doing here. I'm going piano forte, piano forte, piano forte. And then slowly adding that in, or doing trills like feeling how buoyant that is, and then speeding it up, and then hey presto, if you record yourself, there's your spin. You know, it's like like you say, loads of little pulses. You know.
Yeah, I love that. And I was doing this because when you imitate that process of kind of, I was thinking for that student, it feels probably comfortable to stay in that position, right? This is where I speak. This is where, and it probably feels so scary. It's like a leap of faith to just just go into sort of more of this delicate head voice quality of sound. But if you just show it to people, it almost feels that first of all, there's a pressure release. Pressure cooker. And second of all, it feels very trampoline-like. I'm ready to go. I can go up and down, and there's more flexibility, elasticity in the sound.
I mean, these exercises, if you're sitting at a piano and the student doesn't know what notes you're playing, you know, I'm sure you have that. And you on this exercise, like we usually go like that sort of stuff. And I try and find this feeling. I think you talk about as well. This like yodel-like sensation, like feeling. You know, that sort of
with the tilt, guys. Don't you do that?
That and because a lot of people go like that sort of thing, and you want to make sure and then you can go up through the registers, and because they're usually when you are supported, whatever that means, but once you are more coordinated, the passaggio usually just like they usually just sail through it and not even realize. And you'll be amazed. They'll be amazed at what notes they can get up to when they're on this good phonation. The body's engaged. What notes they can get up to and realize, oh, really? Was that? Oh, right. Wow. You know, it's
You know, the yodeling, you brought it up. So important, I think, because what is a yodel? I mean, if you think about it, it's a disconnection. We're flipping to falsetto. Now, again, guys, I'm going to keep saying it. You must do all these exercises with the laryngeal tilt, with a long vocal. If you're not doing it with that, it's just nothing's going to help. Disconnecting to falsetto and finding that elasticity, that open throat. So, kind of like a soprano. having that elasticity, that looseness, that thin adduction, because falsetto, that reinforced, does have adduction. It's just that the vocal cords are flimsy.
Yeah.
Ooh. And as soon as we reconnect, ooh, they find that firmness, and we also, the body engages because we now have that resistance,
that valve.
So
yeah.
So in a way, it's using the falsetto. As a way to train to bring the full voice to that level, so it doesn't feel like it's bringing you down.
Yeah.
But if anything, you feel like you have more elasticity.
Yeah. You find that nice middle ground, right? It's never an extreme, you know. Yeah, it's amazing what playing around with sounds that you don't want to necessarily achieve can improve the sound that you want to achieve, right?
The ugly sounds, the cartoonish sounds, but you know, doing them for a process. Now, Harry, talking about your ability to teach both classical and musical theater. I think that the next sort of subject is we talked about the passaggio, but there's something in the passaggio that happens. We know that it happens. Talking about this giro, this turn, this cover. Okay.
Yeah.
What does covering actually mean to you? And can you think of ways in which it can create more problems than it solves?
Yeah, good point.
And thirdly, I know this is a very long question.
Yeah, no, go for it.
How does it differ in classical singing as opposed to musical theater or pop or sort of that stuff? Because I'm sure it's less exaggerated. So.
Yeah, well, I really like, you know, that famous recording of Pav where he's saying the chords are at rest. I mean, they're not at rest, but you get what, like, it's, you know, if you're an amazing singer, you can say anything basically, and everyone will be like, "Yeah, absolutely." But I mean, he was the best cover, I'd say, out of anyone. Yeah, you could just just that F sharp, F. He even like, and because he was like a loud voice, but he was like his timbre was light, like more lighter and brighter. But he cover F's really well. But I get the point of what he's saying is they're at rest is sort of you're creating an environment for your chords to be working more efficiently, right? As you ascend, as the higher you get. Because if you go wide, you haven't got enough of that environment for the chords to want to stretch efficiently, right? So it's going to be harder work. So that's what I see it as. And you know, you know, you're not darkening the voice, you're darkening the vowels. You know, that's the way I see it. You're not people will then go, oh, you know, but that's not what you want. And then at the top, then you can add a bit of the width back. But that's how I sort of see it, if that makes sense. Does that sound about right your end?
Yeah, I have taken this idea again from Maestro Fisichella, who said, if you maintain the proper laryngeal posture, laryngeal tilt, there is no such thing as passaggio. There's no such thing as covering, because not because there technically isn't. Like if you're neurotic, like we could try. Okay, so it starts here.
Neurotic tenor. I've never heard of one. Never heard of them.
You're right. Not because there isn't, but because if you just think about, if you simplify it, you dumb it down, if you just think, I'm going to maintain this posture and sing everything from here, no matter what, things happen by themselves. If you don't fight it, if you allow things, the problem is we fight all the time, or we want to bring it up, or the body's, you know, kind of having a seizure because it doesn't kind of understand how to maintain this and relax. If we allow things to happen, if we don't push, if we don't tense, things happen by themselves. And so there is such a thing. There is such a thing as artificially covering the voice, which gets a lot of people in trouble, meaning I'm very smart, I'm very neurotic, I know here comes an F sharp or an F, or I should cover, so let me do it. And then what ends up, because you're doing it instead of the voice naturally turning by itself, you get into all sorts of fatigue problems because you're starting to use now the muscularity to curdle a sound that you think is the sensation of
and the root of the tongue as well
lose
becomes
resonance. It's all that stuff. So
yeah,
yes, for me, it's a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
That needs to be properly guided because it's the breaking point. If you don't know how to cover, you either switch to falsetto or you push through and scream.
Yes.
And that's your only option. But if you maintain a lower and you learn your position and you stay elastic, the sound will eventually turn, which we do technically when we yawn, right? If we're yawning around the area.
Yeah, exactly. But do you find though when you teach a student and you said just yawn for me, and then they do something that's just different to what they would normally do? Have you noticed that? It's like they go. Oh. I'm like, no, just I'm not asking you to do anything new here. Just you know, just yawn. But I forgot the second part of your question. So obviously we've just spoken on this, but the bit with the pop singers as well is
musical.
It's the same. It's the same rules apply. Although you have to keep it open. It's not like it's weird. You're tilting. You're creating a better environment. But again, because in pop and musical theatre, their larynx needs to be higher stylistically. You know.
Yeah.
But you are still helping with this feeling of like, hey, ha, ha, not ha. You know, like, ah. You know, it has a G. Ah, you need, just like with opera and classical singing, you need this feeling of length. This like, lengthening the vocal tract. Never wide. You know, and funny enough, belting sounds like such a wide sound. You need to stay just as narrow. It is. Hey, not hey. You know, it's actually like the more and more I teach pop singers, the more and more I realize it's so similar. I had a very well-known pop singer who came to me with vocal problems because a teacher he was having was saying that he was like, surely I should try some classical technique, you know, it might help my singing. And they said, oh, it's completely different. And then he got vocal problems. It's just, it's crazy. Like you've got one mechanism and then you've got to find little tweaks to make it stylistic, you know?
Right.
Yeah, crazy.
Would it be correct then to say, like, would you suggest people who are thinking of singing pop, musical theater, more common genre, to study classical music foundations, to go to that extreme, to find that sound, and then gradually, when they're singing stylistically their music, gradually come away from it, like to not go so exaggerated, become a little bit more, still have tilt, but perhaps not as much tilt needed as
absolutely, because you still need tilt, especially like the more, because a lot of the students I teach still do more of the sort of, I mean I teach pop singers, but the Broadway singers are more on the legit side, is what they say. You know, it's you know, Valjean, Phantom, but then also the golden era stuff that overlaps quite a bit. But you know, the way that it's done now, it has to be, you know, belty. And what I would say is that, I mean, I know a lot of opera singers that then would try and sing pop and it just won't sound right. It will sound like, I love you, babe. You know, it's like, don't do that. But I think if you have a teacher that can teach you classical technique and then employ that into singing stylistically right, then that's the best like cocktail of what you want. Because just doing classical technique and learning, I think it would help West End Broadway singers to look at the Yellow Book, you know, and learn Card on Your Ben and things like that, just to get that feeling of legato, and then employ that release that you get from these arias into singing. And one thing I say as well is that a lot of pop singers, they sing by ear, right, and they learn by ear, which is, I suppose, nice in some ways, but you need to treat your voice like you would treat any instrument when learning music, like this feeling of like knowing exactly what note you're singing, you know, not just like the gist of da, 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 you know, like actually knowing where you're starting,
like
because our brain is the first step in singing, right? Our ear and brain, you know, knowing the pitch and then setting up to coordinate the pitch, you know. So having those foundations is so important. Rather than just go, I sing, you know, and just sing, you know.
I hear, funny enough, like Tom Jones, who's now in his definitely in his later years.
Welsh. He's another Welshman.
Yeah,
Welsh singers.
incredible.
Grim as well,
and
you know.
You can hear the tilt in his sound, like it's so clearly. Like I can't. I probably do like a horrible Tom Jones, but like so unusual.
He's like it's not unusual to be alone. You know, that sort of.
It has, yeah, it's there, and you hear a lot also with great pop singers that natural turn, and you can tell that they figured out the process that the voice wants to do to slim and sing around that area without that tension, right? And there is that's like I would say that's a basic foundation any singer should learn. Because it's anatomical. I mean, the voice is very unique to every individual, for sure.
Yeah.
And what I may feel might be different than what you might feel might be different than what other people are feeling.
Yeah.
But there's some basic foundational, like, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Like, we all have 2 lungs, we all have 2 arms, 2 eyes.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? This is just basic stuff that one must get their head across.
But it's so funny that, like, I was about to say an example with, you know, Steve, you know, the band Journey, right? Steve Perry, the lead singer he's a pure example of someone, like, if we wanted to put it like an operatic, but someone who would sing around F sharp and G all the time, and it would be slim. Living in a lonely, lonely world in that place. And that's like similar to singing, you know, your Verdi, your sort of tessitura that is in that F sharp place. You know, it's all in that. It overlaps, and the more and more I teach these students, the more I understand. It's like it's one mechanism that you tweak to sound more stylistic.
Never push the passaggio.
No,
I think that's never pushed, and it's funny and frustrating because it's the area that you're most tempted to push because it's the feeling of that breaking point. Never push it, and especially And I always say the do usually comes from the so, right? So la ti do. And what's the do of all high C's and right? It's that G to C, F to C. Most of the times from the passaggio we shoot up in a lot of these repertoires. So if you're pushing,
you've got that fun phrase this evening, haven't you? That G to C.
Oh my God, yeah, there's plenty of them. Yeah.
And that one again, you can't overweight. You can't overweight that, can you? You know, then you're finished.
No.
You know.
It's gotta be.
And you can't overturn it either.
Yeah, it's gotta be flexible. We are headed towards the sort of the last couple of minutes here with Harry. Thanks for your time. I do want to end with a couple more questions. That have to do with teaching and especially you specifically. You worked with numerous teachers during your own vocal journey. How have experiencing different approaches shaped the teacher you've become today? I know, and let me say why I'm saying these questions, because I know that there's people who have only ever studied with one teacher and one teacher only, and that teacher in a way has told them this is the only way to do things. Learn it or not, and they have never explored anything else. And so in a situation in which something is not working, perhaps they don't have the tools to fix it because they only have one way. And if that one way fails them at all, they don't have it. So how has that helped in a way to having different approaches helped you shape the teacher you are today?
I've had so many teachers. I mean, ironically, not recently. The irony is the most improvement I made is when I sort of, I think you've had a similar, like you just take matters into your own hands and record like crazy. That's the most, and researching. And I mean, Freddie was this, he had a great teacher, but you know, he spent hours like doing the work himself, you know, but with that said, absolutely, but you need a pair of ears. You need someone that can keep you on that right path, because it's so easy to drift slightly away from where you need to go. You might be heading in the right direction, then you might take one turn vocally and start heading the wrong way, and you just need someone to keep you on that path. But it's so amazing. I look back, and once you crack something in your own like process, then you might look back at something an old teacher said and then go, that's what they meant. because I wasn't getting it at the time, but that's what they meant. It's interesting. I've had one of the best. I mean, other than Fred, I mean, the best advice I had was from a teacher who he had a mixed sort of reputation, but he was great for me because he was so blunt. And he just came to. I was singing too much too soon, as a lot of tenors do. I was doing my post grad, and I had my first year with one teacher, and I felt like I wasn't like moving in the right direction. And I knew some of the students who'd had great careers and sound great. Some others that have had mixed reviews, but he was so direct with me. He was like, "You have a wobble. Your voice sounds like it's poorly. It's sick, and you need to fix it." And it was quite but he was kind of one of those teachers that he was like borderline rude. So there's a part of it that's kind of like you didn't need to say, but like, fine. But he just got me on like a vocal diet of handle, but just basically a lot of handle, a lot of coloratura handle, and it is amazing. It's like medicine for your voice when you sing it efficiently. It's great, and just being so scary, I suppose. Like probably how they were back in the day. That was, for me, that was great. But then understanding that there are parts of his teaching that wasn't clicking, and then parts of other teachers, and then just you have to create your own toolbox, right? And then record yourself like crazy. And then and also a game changer for me was I wasn't happy with the vibrato, because that's what was it was there. And I started recording myself singing sotto voce, right? And I was like, hang on, that vibrato was fixed. It was a pleasant sound. I liked the way I was sounding. What was I doing? And then those moments, those recording breakthroughs are so key. So key. Yeah. You kind of want a teacher that's firm but fair, I'd say. You know, but that isn't set in their own ways, that is happy to learn, and is happy to learn as they're teaching, you know, as well. Always open to new ideas that might help certain students, you know.
I think it's a great answer. You hit something very important, which is I think a lot of people have this mindset, and I speak from experience because when I was 19, 20, I was doing the, there's these master classes in Carnegie Hall where I appeared with Joyce Donato, Pietro Bacciala, very young age. And they're quite, for some reason, famous on YouTube, which is the worst thing because you're at your youngest and worst and those, but it's like out there.
There are recordings back of me that I'm like, oh God. It's just
me, a little kid.
Even once from like a year ago, it's like, don't send that. Send this one. You know, it's
right. And I had that same mentality, which is if I just find the right teacher, they'll fix everything for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite work that way. There's only one thing a teacher can do, and that is share the information, guide you based on the sound. But we can't physically like put our hands inside you and make everything click and work. You are responsible for your own progress, okay? Not a teacher. Again, a teacher is there to help you, to guide you, to use analogies, to make you think outside the box, to make you, to help you to get there. But you need to get there, and a lot of it is on you.
Yeah.
So if you're not disciplined enough to do that, or you're waiting for some magic pill, this might not be the thing for you, because this takes a lot of work that never ends, because the voice is also a changing thing. So you have to be kind of obsessed. I don't know what the word, you have to be quite neurotic and record. It's such easy to record. And so we're running out of time here, and the reason why I'm mentioning this because I kind of want to get to our last question.
Yeah.
Which does involve vocal technique in a different way. But who do you listen to? Who are your inspirations, your points of references?
Yeah.
And why is that important to someone's journey as well, to not just practice and train and learn these things, but listen to great singers who show you how it's done. Have that, because I have students today who have never. This might be their third year, and they've never listened to like Geely, to Wunderlich, to Bjorn. I'm like, you've been doing this for 3 years and you don't know who, like, so having a partner, who do you listen to? Why do you think it's so important?
So yeah, I mean, Pavarotti for me is just the, I know it's like the cookie cutter answer, but I mean, no, but I love Geely. Geely is great because he demonstrates that sort of sottovoce, sweet, connected piano singing, but then he can put his foot on the gas and it's boom, this Verdi tenor, like it's amazing. And he and also that golden era can show you they sang everything. They had that ability to really control their instrument, you know. It wasn't loud or louder. They you know, same with Lauri Volpi, you know, he could do that sweet sound and then boom. And he was singing into his 80s. But for me, sort of I mean, he's, you know, in more modern terms, Pavarotti, just because he sang with such slimness, if that makes sense, you know. Which is, you know, I like to say to my students, you know, sing down the line, you know, never go too wide. You know, the vocal tract is not very wide. You don't want to be. I loved how slim he sang. You know, of course, Corelli, Del Monaco, these guys were amazing. But you know, if you listen to them too much, especially when you're young, because at the end of the day, we do mimic to some extent. You know, we do. It's not the only way to learn how to sing, but it definitely helps. Like, you can talk to a student all the time about what's happening biomechanically, but you need to be able to show them what they're looking for, you know. So yeah, probably, I imagine, probably similar to the tenors you might listen to. You know, it's you know, it's
and I think it's very important. I think it's like having a blueprint, you know, and listening to them, not just out of enjoyment, but out of also breaking down what are they doing in those pesky places that you think you are struggling with. What are they doing, the passaggio? Why are they turning? What vowel are they using? What kind of sound? You know, so it's a good way to get a lot of answers already without the need to. I mean, for free, you know, and just having that sound in your head constantly. And I think that talking about blueprints and stuff, being a voice teacher, you must feel like a mechanic in many ways, because, you know, sometimes we bring in a car to a mechanic and we say, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'm getting this sound, or putting the key on, and then the mechanic, you know, smiles and checks, and he has to check all the compartments, making sure what is it that's working. And in a way, a voice teacher has to be like that, to try to figure out and pinpoint what is the concept that is not clicking in this specific point of this singer's range and stuff like that. Harry, thank you so much for joining us today. We are, I did promise that we were going to stick to an hour. We're an hour and 8, so thank you for the extra 8 minutes. You've been so amazing, and this has been such a fun and fascinating conversation. You know, I think there is a lot for singers to take away here. You know, I mean, the only thing that would be better is just to book a one-on-one lesson with you. That would be the only way to get more in depth. And to everyone who joined us live, thank you for coming. You know, this will be posted, so if you missed it, you'll get to see it anyways. Thank you guys for being part of it. And if you did enjoy today's Tenor Talk, remember to subscribe to the channel, become a CTS member. We do have another live stream coming tomorrow with another great a singer and colleague and tenor here in Bregenz, Long Long, who has also been conquering a lot of the world's operatic stages. Harry, once again, thank you so much for your time. You do have a concert today, so we wish you all the best A big toy. Is there anything you would like to let the people know if there is something that you are offering online, or how to reach out to you for voice lessons?
Yep.
If there's a concert that you're doing
Yep.
that you want people, let them know now. Or let us
yeah,
know
how
to reach you.
Find me on Instagram, Harry Kersley Singer, and then all my links are there. I've got a website, but you can find everything that I'm up to on there. And drop me a DM, no problem.
Great, fantastic. Harry, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everyone watching.
Sorry tonight.
Thank you.
Take care.
We'll see all you guys tomorrow, next time. All right. Ciao.
See you later. Bye.